So hey everybody, it's Stephen. I've been thinking more about this idea that I've talked about in a few videos about how how lower dimensional images, say, can create a higher dimensional reality through the holographic effect. And making the argument that the images that you surround the space you occupy, the images you surround yourself with in that space, will have an effect on the reality that exists in that space. And so, I mean, we can think of our modern lives being more and more dominated by the images we see, and then we have to ask ourselves, how are those images affecting how are those lower dimensional images that we're watching affecting our higher dimensional reality that we live in? In an Orthodox church, we would surround our liturgical space with images that promote the proper functioning of the liturgy in that space, which I think it actually is true. It's one of the special things about walking into an Orthodox church is that you can immediately feel it. You can feel it because of all the icon that are literally surrounding you inside the church, and it has a sort of a very different feeling. You can see on the wall behind me, I'm doing the same sort of thing, obviously, here in the space that I'm in. So, I thought I had sort of reached the conclusion of what I wanted to say about that, and sort of just reiterate it here. But then, a friend of mine had mentioned, "Oh, aren't you talking about entropy? Isn't this entropy?" And it's like, wow, going into the entropy, into the entropy thing can be a rather daring test, because it's such a difficult thing to really understand completely. But you can understand it basically, I think, and I think I'll go there for a second. So obviously, the two-dimensional images, or the images that we're looking at, are. And not in a random state. They're very organized, and they, when we think about those images then creating our reality, our lived reality, through this sort of holographic effect, through our embodying them in some way in our three-dimensional or four-dimensional space, however you want to think of it. I can think you can say we're going from a more concentrated, a more orderly image that we're looking at, to a more disorderly reality that we're living in. These images become highly edited or highly composed, highly structured. They can be very, very finely structured, and I think generally they are. We consider the things that we look at, the more compositionally well done, the more likely we're to look at them, or the way they grab our attention, right, is by how well they're organized in some way, how much meaning they have, how much meaning they can convey in a small space. Well, that's practically a definition of a lower entropy state, and the universe in general doesn't like that. The universe wants to put things in a less ordered state, and it's just one of the laws of the universe that's just not it's not violated. It's just never violated, this entropy idea. So then we less than ideally live out our embodied, higher dimensional lives in some way directed by these images that we've been occupying ourselves with, and so we're going from a more, a lower entropy to a higher entropy, just as that entropic law of the universe would indicate. So I think from an entropy point of view, I think this idea of that, and then in like as I've been saying, in physics, the idea that there's a strong argument to be made for the idea, for the postulate that we're living in a holographic universe that's somehow being projected from information that's being stored on the leading edge of the expanding universe. So there's an edge, a lower dimensional edge of the expanding universe from the beginning, and that's somehow projecting into a reality into us in a lower dimensional surface that's expanding into this higher dimensional space that we live in. So those things corresponding nicely. I think you might also be able to say that this is a really, from Entropy's point of view, it's a real win. It's a real win when you can go from a lower dimensional, and when you can project a lower dimensional, lower entropy state into a higher dimensional, higher entropy state. And it's a real win on the entropy side. So it appeared to be very energetically favorable from a physical standpoint for the kind of thing we're saying to exist, and of course for this to work. I mean, it works in the universal sense just because of the way the universe is working, but it works in a human sense especially well because we can control images so well, and we can compose images really well, and the seems as though through human evolution, we're getting better and better at composing the image, and the number of images that we're using to create the reality that we live in seems to be like almost an exponential increase with the internet. So we can have in effect a more complex lived reality through these highly composed images that we're using to create the reality that we live in. So we don't just have to be within the universe's holographic reality. We can exponentially increase that entropic, that entropic increase by composing very low entropy images into even more highly diverse holographic state by being intelligent creatures that can manipulate imagery to create the psychological space, that we're occupying. And so is there an entropy increase associated with holographically creating psychological space from the images that we use? So from cave paintings 50,000 years ago to scrolling Instagram is a vast evolutionary change in a direction that also, I might argue, that if you think of the idea of images creating higher dimensional reality, being a very highly favorable entropic idea, then perhaps highly intelligent beings creating a very fast image moving internet is simply the physical universe directing us to do this thing that we're doing. And it seems we have a lot of reservations about it, but I think from the point of view of the universe, from the point of view of God, there's something to this. The other problems are introduced by it for sure, but I'm just exploring it from God's interest in his seeming steadfast interest in increasing entropy, and that the way that we're heading towards this highly composed, highly fast-moving imagery of the internet is favorable to that principle. All right. Anyway, thanks.